Cloud Interview Questions, an initiative by CloudWati. So we have seen all the different cloud players, all the basic building components of cloud computing. Right now, we will step into many of the services. We will introduce a lot of services one by one. So it is very important to understand these services and to understand why these services are being used and what kind of like offering they actually provide to the customers. We'll start with the first and the foremost service, which is called a virtual machine, right? So in an on-premise environment, we used to have physical server. A virtual representation or a virtual server is generally called as a virtual machine. And server is nothing but a extended CPU, right? So when we talk about a CPU, we used to have a RAM memory, we used to have hard disk, we used to have ports to allow internet connection and everything, right? Similarly, a virtual machine is also not just a compute service, but it has compute, it has storage, it has networking, it has all the different services across, right? And the virtual machine or an EC2 is kind of an IaaS offering, which is infrastructure as a service. So which means you will have the customer will have the most control as well as it would be the cheapest one. So let's jump into the definition and we will see that features as well. So an Azure VM or EC2, right? EC2, the full form is Elastic Cloud Compute, and it is a service from Amazon Web Services, right? An Azure VM or an AWS EC2 is nothing but a software representation of your actual physical servers. If it is an actual physical server, you have to procure the device, you have to do the configuration, you have to make it provision it to the customer, right? But in case of a virtual world, in cloud computing world, now it is a software representation. It is available over the internet, but it is a mock-up. It is a software mock-up of your actual physical server, right? And as I mentioned, just like a CPU, the customer will have the maximum control here. They can pick whatever CPU type they want. Like some of the types may be like it may be a graphics intensive, it may be a memory intensive, right? It can go for any intensive option, right? Any option. And second is you can select any size, like you can go for one virtual machine or you can go for two virtual CPUs, four, eight, any size, any memory, any storage. So even if you take storage, right, in cloud computing, just like you have a hard disk in your CPU, we need to have somewhere where you can actually store the data that is being created in the virtual machine, right? These can be, we have two options available. One is hard disk storage HDD, as well as another one is premium like solid state device. So you have multiple options which the customer can actually select and they can use for their own infrastructure. And the last is networking. So we need to decide whether we have to expose this application to the internet or whether we need to keep it with ourselves, whether to allow an RDP access, whether to allow a SSH access. So all these can be controlled with the help of networking, right? And this is an IaaS offering, which means it is the cheapest service model that is available from the cloud service provider, as well as the customer, right? They have the maximum control here. They can choose whatever options they want. It is kind of the most flexible one in terms of configurations, right? So this is what a virtual machine or EC2 does. So it is a software representation. It comprises of all these CPU type storage networking, and it is an IaaS offering which can provide total control and customization. Okay. So with this, we will continue with the next type of services tomorrow. Thank you and goodbye.